Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how to write sentences using the present subjunctive. To begin, we're going to talk about some vocabulary that is related to grammar. The first word is clause, and a clause is a combination of words within a sentence. The next word is indicative. Indicative refers to grammar tenses that express a simple statement or fact. Indicative tenses that we know are present tense, preterite tense, imperfect tense, future tense, conditional tense. Subjunctive refers to grammar tenses expressing what is imagined, wished, or possible. There are 3 different types of subjunctive tense, but today we are focusing on present subjunctive. And the last word I want to talk about is subject. And our subject of a sentence is who is performing the action. Sentences using the subjunctive contain 3 parts. First, we have the indicative clause. Then we have the word que. And then we have the subjunctive clause. The indicative clause indicates that what is coming next is a wish, emotion, impersonal, recommendation, or doubt. Below is a list of some common indicative clauses that would be used with the subjunctive. We have espero, me alegro, es necesario, es importante, te recomiendo, duro, ojalá, mi profesora quiere, es terrible, me gusta, and no creo. There's a couple of things I want to note here. The first note has to do with the phrase me gusta. You only use subjunctive with me gusta if you have the word que and a change in subject. So in our first example here, it says, me gusta que tú estudies español. I like that you study Spanish. You can see that we have the word que directly after me gusta, and then the subject changes to tú. In our second sentence, it just says, me gusta viajar. In this example, we do not have the word que, and we do not change subject, so we do not use subjunctive. The next thing I want to note has to do with the phrase no creo. And that is that you do not use the subjunctive with the phrase creo que. You only use subjunctive with the negative no creo. So here's an example of that. This first sentence says, creo que el mundo es redonda. I believe that the world is round. We have the word que, and we have a change in subject, which would usually indicate subjunctive. However, the phrase creo que means I believe. So regardless of what comes next and whether it is true or not, the person saying creo que is stating that they believe it to be a fact. And if we look at the definitions above, we will see that we use the indicative tense to state facts. In the next sentence, it says, no creo que seas famoso. When you use the phrase no creo, you do use subjunctive because you do not believe it to be a fact. However, it is a possibility. The subjunctive clause is the only place in your sentence where you should have a verb in the subjunctive. You should never have a verb in subjunctive before the que. And the last thing I want to note about writing sentences in subjunctive is that sentences using subjunctive should have 2 subjects, and those subjects should be different. Here I have 15 examples of sentences using subjunctive. I'm going to go through the first three and underline the indicative clause, bold the K, and italicize the subjunctive tense. Our first sentence says, me gusta que cocines bien. Me gusta is the indicative clause. Then we have que, and then cocines bien is the subjunctive clause. And you can see that that is where our verb is in subjunctive. Our next sentence says, Juan espera que su maestra no le dé un examen hoy a la clase. Juan espera is the indicative clause, followed by que. And then su maestra no le dé un examen hoy a la clase is the subjunctive clause. The next sentence is, es necesario que nosotros comamos pizza los viernes. Es necesario is the indicative clause, followed by que. And then nosotros comamos pizza los viernes is the subjunctive clause. If you were to continue doing this for all 15 sentences, you would see that the indicative clause is always at the beginning of the sentence, and it always includes a verb in regular present tense. Then you'd have que, and then you'd have your subjunctive clause, which is where you would see your subjunctive verb. You would also notice that in every case here, the subject changes after que. Now I want to talk about how you would write sentences using the subjunctive. So the first thing I would do is I would read the question. The first question says, ¿Esperas vivir en una casa grande o pequeña en el futuro? ¿Dónde vivirás? This question is asking, do you wish to live in a big house or a little house in the future? Where will you live? Let's first look at the tenses used in the question. Here we have a verb in our indicative present tense. Here we have an infinitive verb, or a verb that has not been changed. And here we have a verb in future tense. When I am answering questions in Spanish, I would use the tenses given in the question. So I'm going to start with indicative present tense, espero. Then I'm going to use the infinitive, vivir, en una casa grande. The next question uses future tense, so I'm going to use future tense in my answer. Viviré en Iowa. And here I've answered that question. This might be on a subjunctive assignment, but you actually do not need to use subjunctive in the question, in the answer. Our next question says, ¿Deseas que tus hijos practiquen un deporte? ¿Cuál deporte jugarán? So again, my first step is going to be to look at what tenses are used in the question. So here I have an indicative present tense verb. Then the next verb I have, practiquen, that is a verb in subjunctive. And the last verb I have, jugarán, is future tense. So I'm going to start with a verb in indicative present tense. Deseo que mis hijos, and then I'm going to use the subjunctive here in my answer because subjunctive was used in the question. Practiquen un deporte. Now on this part, I'm going to use future tense because that's what was used in the question. Jugarán el fútbol. They're going to play football. Let's look at one more question. This question says, ¿prefieres que la profesora te dé mucha tarea? There are two verbs in this question. The first one, prefieres, is in indicative present tense. And the second one, de, is in present subjunctive tense. So those are the two tenses that I'm going to use in my response. I'm going to start with indicative present tense. So prefiero que la profesora no me, and then here I'm going to use subjunctive tense, me dé tarea. I prefer that the professor does not give me homework. And that is how you write sentences using the subjunctive tense. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will hear from you guys soon.